the courtroom for the continuation of our meeting. We're ready for Lori Menold.
Where would you like me to stand, sit?
Whatever you want.
Wherever you feel comfortable.
Okay.
You do better work sitting, way we can get you a chair.
I'm good. What I have to say, I just wrote it down just so I could make sure I compiled everything and all the pertinent information I just wanted to get across to you, and I provided a copy for you to have access to as well. So my name is Lori Menold. I am a registered nurse. I'm a wife and a mom of 3 boys. First of all, thank you for serving our county, and let me share some thoughts and concerns I have today. So when I became aware that the wind turbines were not just planned in southern Nemaha County, but the whole of Nemaha County, I naturally wanted to know how this would impact my family and my community. So when I first heard the health arguments regarding wind turbines, even as a nurse, I will admit that I was skeptical. I'm like, how can a windmill impact health? However, I started reading and I could not stop reading. I kept going from article to article to article, and I dove into case reports, testimonies, and peer-reviewed literature. Although there is literature that concludes that wind turbines do not impact the health of humans and aren't related to adverse health effects, but it's largely, I'm seeing this more and more, they do admit to annoyance. I did also note that there is a large body of good quality, often peer-reviewed literature by many reputable professionals that believe there is enough scientific evidence to establish a causal link between industrial wind turbines and detrimental health effects. This matches the testimonies of individuals living near industrial wind turbines, so not just in a few isolated areas, but around the United States and around the world. So yes, we know it's controversial, and no, it doesn't impact everyone. Dr. John P. Harrison, an expert in the properties of matter at low temperature with emphasis on high-frequency sound waves, concluded that industrial wind turbines cause annoyance in about 20% of residents living within a distance that is considered acceptable by most regulatory authorities. For many of the 20%, the annoyance and sleep disturbance lead to adverse health effects. Also to note is the fact that those that have signed lease contracts often can't speak out negatively about the industrial wind turbines. This makes it difficult to gather and collect all pertinent data. So in lease agreements here in Nemaha County, the contract for the landowner to sign has an effects easement that includes all the following: audio, visual, view, light, flicker, noise, shadow, vibration, air turbulence, wake, electromagnetic, electrical, and radio frequency interference, and any other effects attributed to the wind farm, end quote. At the end of the contract, it notes that complaints can't come before a jury trial. Whoa. This creates great pause. As I have heard, the wind companies deny health issues, but it seems that they are painfully aware of health effects that have been suffered and may impact people even with standard industry setbacks. In my brain, I just really struggle with this. So I'm like, what kind of industry does this? So I come from the medical field. So in my job, I'm a diabetes educator. So one of the things I often do is review how medications are intended to work with patients. And in that process, we always review side effects as well, because they have to be aware of those. But never do we have a patient sign a document that they can't speak out negatively about the side effects so others can benefit from just that accrued knowledge over time. It has to be reported. This is the best practice to help medical care for all patients, even after drugs have been FDA approved and are deemed safe. If someone has a negative side effect, they can just stop taking the medication. But once a turbine is up, if I or a family member is affected, I just can't stop it. So in a letter dated about a month ago, November 28, 2018, to the Canadian government officials and her colleagues, Dr. Rena Bray, she's a medical director of the Environmental Health Clinic at Women's College Hospital. She's an associate professor and an environmental health consultant. She wrote, "I am writing to express concern about the potential for harm for human health represented by Ontario's industrial wind turbines and their supporting infrastructure. Research has demonstrated how various forms of pollutants from industrial wind turbines can adversely affect human health. She cited research and literature describing the adverse health effects and reviewed recommendations that need to be implemented to mitigate risk, and she concluded her letter with the following. The risk for the short and long-term health of Ontarians of not undertaking such mitigating and remediating steps is significant. So I wanted to know what are the reported adverse health effects. So the most common reported core symptoms and complaints include sleep disturbance, so we see that often, headache, dizziness, vertigo, ear pain, and pressure. It is noteworthy that these are remarkably common worldwide near wind farms. So the most undisputed health effect, in addition to annoyance, is sleep disturbance. So there are other symptoms described by different researchers as linked to exposure to infrasound and low frequency noise. So, and I did attach a document for you, and it's this first one reported, it's called Symptoms. It's from the Punch and James peer-reviewed paper, where they looked at 4 decades of evidence that wind turbines do pose risk. So James Punch had a 4-year decade career as an audiologist, and he's a professor emeritus in the Department of Communicative Sciences and Disorder at Michigan State University. And James is an acoustical engineer and acoustician with expertise in the field of sound, including noise, low-frequency noise, sounds emitted from industrial wind turbines, and human response to noise. So I know sleep disturbance sounds so minor, but it has been documented that it can be serious if it leads to sleep deprivation, which is associated with a gamut of cardiovascular diseases. So when we say cardiovascular, cardio is heart, vascular is vessel, so any heart vessel disease, it is attributed to that, obesity, diabetes, and poor memory. And so it's remarkably how there's similar health effects that have been noted by all these different researchers, and there's references to all their studies in there. So what are the mechanisms of the industrial wind turbines that would cause these symptoms? So this stems from the audible, inaudible, or infrasound noise and the vibratory impact or sensations that reach and stimulate the inner ear, both our hearing organ and the vestibular organ, that's where the balance and motion are detected. So wind turbine noise has been described as having a character that makes it far more annoying and stressful than other sources of noise at that same A-weighted level, including traffic and industrial noise. So that A-weighted level, there's different ways to measure infrasound, and why that's specified in something I'll get to later is I think some of the initial studies don't always appropriately measure the infrasound. So infrasound is the noise emissions below the audible, or what we can hear, hearing threshold. There are many papers written on this, but we'll quote from the Punch and James in that infrasound and low frequency noise from any source, including wind turbines, is well known to penetrate walls and other barriers. It's typically more disruptive indoors than outdoors and is not easily masked by atmospheric sounds, including road traffic noise and other sources of infrasound. They go on to state in their paper that there is ample evidence that noise in general, and especially low-frequency noise, has long-term consequences for human health. So it is documented that families have had to leave their homes due to the health effects of wind turbines. It is also noted that when the turbines were off, these symptoms went away. We're already concerned about the economic impact on house values, so I wonder, too, this was one of my thoughts, if this might drive out residents as well who would be impacted by health effects. And I think of my kids too, like if they can't sleep, and especially the vulnerable population, especially if sited too close to protect, especially if sited too close to home. So we have heard discussions of protecting our towns and setbacks, with setbacks at 2 miles. So my thought is, why not protect our rural residents as well? So I'll include another attachment, and I have that in your packet too, with just recommendations by different scientists, but they have recommended that distances separating turbines and residences, most commonly by 1.2 miles or more, to prevent, a minimum, to prevent adverse health effects. The other thing is, researchers have recommended sound levels typically ranging from 30 to 40 decibels for safeguarding health, which is consistent with the recommendation of nighttime noise levels by the World Health Organization. So our county is in a unique spot as we're highly populated and have a higher percentage of those most vulnerable to the adverse health effects of wind turbines. So 20% of our county is age 65 and older, and they say 6 or younger on the Census Bureau. It's 7.6% under the age of 5. So even if just 10% of our rural population is impacted, this will impact several hundred individuals. So at least over 400 people. So I'm here today as a community member, as it raises concern that the industrial wind turbine could definitely impact the health of my family and our communities. I want to reach out to you, to our providers and members of the health community to get their input as well. So with the holiday season and the time restraint for diligent research, this has been challenging. So I know Commissioner Henry, you have said one of our jobs is to protect, or your job is to protect the health and wellness of our county. So I want to help perform due diligence in this, so when I have providers' input, I'll be back to share what they have to say as well with all of you. So I desire to get feedback from our providers, our medical providers and practitioners, but some questions I believe need to be evaluated include the following. Number one, what are truly safe setback distances in our highly rural populated and higher vulnerable county with the layout of our ridge landscape and how sound travels? Number two, are decibel levels, especially in our terrain, going to be tested and monitored with all the appropriate weight scales that measure audible noise and the infrasound? And will we know they will be below the 30 to 40 decibel level in all seasons of the year? Because winter is generally a more challenging season. With larger turbines, I understand more sound is emitted, so that's a question. Does this impact our setback distance? Because our leases are 50 to 90 year leases, so over time, will larger blades go in over the course of time that it might impact safety when the 15 to 20 year life of those current blades are done? Number five, how will this impact our Lifestar, our air ambulance services? Will it slow travel time with the large number of proposed turbines to get to our facilities? Will it impact a rescue on Highway 75 or Highway 36? I have contacted Craig Isam, who is the program director of the Med Trans Air Ambulance Service for our Nemaha County area. He did say they cannot fly through a wind farm. If there is a farm accident, air rescue won't be an option. He did ask that he be kept in the loop, and I feel like this is going to be an important part of the conversation too. He said so they can have a solid plan in place. And number six, will there be a reporting mechanism for those adversely impacted by the wind turbines? So I just feel like there are other unanswered questions that remain, and just asking for additional time would be helpful to gather our local medical professionals and utilize our state and similar state health agencies to come to more thoroughly research and investigate the above questions and additional questions that come up as we look to perform our due diligence for the safety and welfare of our county. So, as mentioned earlier, the wind companies have well protected themselves in their effects easement clause of their contracts. And we need to make sure we protect the health and wellness of our citizens. So thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Lori. You've done obviously a lot of research and a lot of work, and I thank you very much as a concerned citizen. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Lori while she's here to go into this? I think she pretty well covered what many of our questions are. We have to take this all into consideration, and like I said, one of our primary jobs is the health, safety, and welfare of Nemaha County citizens. There's a lot of issues that we've got to figure out, and questions that personally I have, and you talked about the larger turbines. There's not a lot of what's industry acceptable, and they keep going back to, a lot of the things I was in, they keep going back, well, this is industry acceptable. We can be this close to a house. Well, do they have that on the larger, they don't quite split that out as far as what I've found, but definitely all the information that you come up with. The one question I have on your symptoms, this references, would that mean they had 112 instances?
No, that would be from this this paper, what it says a reference, and I could actually pull, it's a a 75 document, but that's where the reference
Oh,
source, if you
where
would
it
want
goes
to go
to
back
in the
and
reference, okay.
cross-reference
I was
it.
just wanted to
Yeah.
straighten that out.
Sure.
And if anyone would like copies of this, you know, we can have Mary Kay and we can make copies and we'll get some of this done. Because obviously, very good information.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lori. I appreciate your let's see, Mary Kay, do you want to see if you want to call Mandy, or can you go up and have them make copies of this?
I can run up there if I know how many you want me to make.
Okay, well, how many copies would we like to have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. At least 10, might make 12 of each
I've
one.
got mine here.
And if they can get it ready and staple them together, and then we'll...
And then bring it back down?
Yeah, you might get it.
Okay.
There is a couple of things. One of them is, you know, is the population of our county compared to some of the other ones. What do you think?
Keep track of everything we're talking about.
But many of the concerns that Lori has presented here is, I think, very important because of the density of our people. We got so many people in Nemaha County that live in rural areas. And so we need to be paying attention to what's going on, what's happening, and they all need our protection, and we'll go forth from there. But does anyone have anything they want to say or wish to bring up at this time?
Dennis, just a real quick comment, kind of going along with Lori's. I have a neighbor whose grandson lives kind of in this area, and I can't give names because I haven't asked her, but she said her grandson gets, she used the word set off by this type of motion, and they're on probably a 3 or 4 acre spot. So, you know, they can't not sound it, but yet they're close enough. I mean, how do you deal with something like that? I mean, that would fit right in with Lori's.
And that's where I just feel like we just need more time for more research, because there's just a lot of questions. I mean, it's been asked, you know, like the photosensitive epilepsy, you know, just things like that. Those repetitive motions can definitely be a stressor for kids, and that can be difficult. So, yeah, but that's where I feel like just more research really needs to be done, so.
And I don't know as the state of Kansas or the federal government's got research.
And I
in
think
their
that's where it would
plan.
be hard. I mean, we've reached out to the Kansas Health Institute and KDHE, and with the holidays, it's been difficult, but even checking with our state epidemiologist just to see if there's data or even similar to our ridge lines and areas, just to also people that have also additional expertise that could weigh in on it as well. So it would be lovely, like if we could have a study done, and I don't know if that's feasible, really just to see what with our area what would be deemed safe. So, but yeah, I just a lot of that needs to be checked into.
Tim or Gary, do you have anything you wish to bring out?
Questions out there, but yeah, I had one that, you guys are working on the negotiations, I guess, and I don't know if the attorney from Kansas City was here this morning or not, but where are you at on disclosure from the wind farm company as to what their plan is? In other words, if you're negotiating on setbacks and payments and so forth, the disclosure of their information is, I think, critical to this. Where are they putting the wind turbines?
And we did talk about that this morning, but one of the things we probably, before we can do much of anything, we need the footprint. We need to know, are they going to put a windmill, or are they?
Because Dennis, they know where they're putting them.
Well,
at this
and they're
stage of
supposed
the
to come
game,
up with that, and
they know
Spencer,
where-
they act like you would probably have that here in early January.
Yes, sir.
Is what we're planning on having. And as Mr. Neal said, that's one of the things we have to have before we can go very far forward. He's having good conversation. He said they've talked about this setback thing to deep concerns, and like I said, it's going to be a tough go because of the fact there's no studies, and as our windmills, that's where we're kind of up against the wall. We're going to have to use our best judgment, and if we get too ridiculous, they're a big company.
Where are we at on protection and constraints on Invenergy, the company that isn't even in the room?
We're working on that. We got hopefully, maybe by next week we can bring forth some indication of what we got planned for that. But yeah, it's what they did in Brown County, is we don't want happening here. Very bad. But it does go to show you that when they have a long farm leased, well, they got a farm leased. And I don't, because it's no different than Mr. Glaze running his bulldozer up and down any road in Nemaha County. As to them, as far as that's concerned. Now, when they get to overweight stuff and like that, we're going to have to, we need to enlist our engineering firm, get them up board, get them up to speed, so that we have roads that they are supposed to cover and carry, and that's all going to be in this agreement. But yeah, we had a very good conference call this morning with Mr. Neal, and that's about all really we can say right now. He gave us some plans of attack and what we need to do and what we need to get done, and information we need to get back to him, and things we need to be thinking about. And Lori's letter, along with many of the other letters that each of us receive, and which is great. You know, we've all done our homework, and it's amazing that a lot of the homework I do is not in some of these letters. It's different, you know, because everybody that goes out there and reads comes up with a different feeling. But I will say that, you know, my personal feeling, we've got to protect the non-participating landowner. You know, I mean, we got to do the best we can do for them people. And that's now, in the future, whenever. Yes, sir?
Dennis, I think you guys as commissioners are put in a hard position with what you just said, protecting a non-participating homeowner. I would be one of them. My feeling is that you guys, when you establish your setbacks, need to let the non-participating homeowner have a say in it. So let's just say, for an example, 1 mile. If Nextera or Invenergy wants to put a wind turbine within 1 mile of my home, then they need to come to me and reach an agreement with me. That takes the pressure off of you guys as commissioners making decisions for me and my family and the safety and health of my family. I'm just throwing this out there, guys. If we can make an agreement, great. If we can't make an agreement, then they need to hold the mile. Just throwing it out there.
And we very well, this has come up many times, of what is the non-participating person's rights.
Right, exactly.
And
I don't feel as if I'd like you guys making that decision for me, because that's not healthy for you guys.
But it comes back to your health, safety, and welfare, you know, and that's where we've got to come from. Now, can we negotiate a decent, my personal feeling, and then this is off the record, it's nothing from anybody, my personal feeling is that if they're going to put a wind farm around your 6 acres,
yep,
you absolutely have to have a contract with them. Absolutely. And then there's going to be clauses, well, if you don't want to sign, and if you don't sign, then what happens? What's the fallback, which falls back on us again? So in retrospect, you know, you as a non-participating landowner, number one, are going to have to be very diligent in your negotiations, and you're put kind of in the same situation that we're put in. We're dealing with a $16 billion company, and you're going to be dealing with the same thing. So I don't want to put you in that situation if we don't have to. But I do believe personally that if a windmill's going within, you know, 3,000 feet or whatever of your house, you should have a say. You know, you should, one way or the other, you should at least have some input as to what you want, and have it in writing that, listen, I oppose this. I oppose the fact if they come in and say, I'm going to put a windmill 2,500 feet from your house, I feel like you should have the right to have them say, listen, we're going to put it there, and you can write an objection to that and post it and file it. And that way down the road, if something comes up, your kids get sick of all this, you have litigation to back you on this. Now, is that going to work? I don't know. But I mean, that's the perfect world. But yeah, we're definitely not deaf to what's going on. We've got that situation all over Nemaha County. Really do.
Have you guys played with setbacks at all? Gone on Google Earth and done setbacks on homes around the county? You can do that. You can go on Google Earth and you can establish a radius around homes. And if you do that, you will see where it works. It's going to cost the wind turbine companies more money, but they're making a lot of money. It's not a problem. And the mile setbacks gives me the choice to say, well, for $10,000 a year, yeah, I'll be a lab rat, and decide whether or not it's going to affect my family or not. But they can make it work with setbacks and waivers. It is possible. And then everybody has to say. and the weight is off of your shoulders.
Well, anything's possible, but I'm telling you, when the land gets leased, it's making our job a lot more difficult. I'm telling you that right now. And I don't think there's anything anyone here in this room can do outside of communicating with your neighbors and the people that own the land. That's the easiest way to stop this spread of a lot of windmills. But again, you know, there's a lot of them people got to make their payments. They got to run their farm the best they know how. So we got to respect their rights as well.
But also they have to expect the non-participant's right. If the non-participant has to respect their rights, it's got to be two ways. It can't be.
You mean the landowner has to respect?
Everybody.
Well, they should. They should, but we've got situations where Dad sold parcels off to two of the kids, and that's where it ended. Dad went ahead and signed the farm up and didn't even talk to the kid.
When the conditional use permit was granted for this area south here, that's what I'm understanding. I have to apologize, Dennis, I came into this very late.
Sure, Bob.
Haven't been really excited about it. But all of a sudden, I hear things that this setback distance has changed. Now, when that conditional use permit was granted, was there a setback requirement in it?
Was there?
No.
No, it was nothing to, there was none of that.
Okay, you guys got to lay out the rules.
And
Because right now I'm hearing that is all changed down to 1,400 feet or setback.
close to that.
Is that right?
That's the industry standard.
But the
That's not what
industry
we're
standard
proposing.
is not necessarily the public standard.
Exactly, that's not what we're proposing.
That's right.
Actually, there is no standard right now. We don't even have a, technically don't even.
Well, the next there is already
Have a
said that.
1,500-foot setback.
There, I don't know if it's in your contracts or not, with each individual
In
farm.
Bennett's
14
published in
feet
the
is close
paper
to what
that
you're
theirs
gonna
is
go with, the ones that are signed up. That's the
Yeah.
So,
Just to
but
clarify.
we're working on this. I mean, it's gonna be a few weeks before we have numbers we can bring back to you guys.
The problem-
And once we do, then we're gonna negotiate again, because you guys may not like them.
But the problem with that is that they're out there, as I understand, they're out there signing up people on leases. Was that you that, on the video that testified about how many have been recorded?
Yeah, that's recorded.
That are not even within this use permit area.
Well,
They're gonna lay these on your desk and say, hey, these people all want this. Well, and these people don't even know what the rules are.
we're well aware of the situations, and there's three companies that are leasing land in Nemaha County. You know, next
We
area
can't
has.
control, though, the people that have signed those leases.
I'm sorry?
We can't control if they've signed those leases.
You can.
No.
If the rules were established ahead of that, you could have controlled it. Now you've almost lost control of it.
Well, and 3 to 5 years ago, if we knew this was coming, if our crystal ball was good enough to see this, and a bunch of concerned citizens would have pushed hard enough for zoning, which I can think that a good bunch of lawyers can get around zoning eventually. We could put it off, we can push it down, but it's what should have been done. But could we have got as many people as we got in here 5 years ago to even talk about zoning? I don't think so.
With notice, you probably could have.
Because I tried to zone an area surrounding our small community and had so much pushback, it was unbelievable. But this is, I watched a video over the weekend that I think of your meeting
Sure.
two weeks ago.
And that's good.
Like that. And you talked about a resolution. you as commissioners can't adopt a resolution? It sounded like you felt you could adopt a resolution that would control these areas.
Our indication is we can't, right now.
You can or can't?
Can't. We're, you know, it's, but we are working on a resolution, but it's, you know, but that's what we're into, and I, you know, find it interesting, you know, the ones that I've seen that you can get a moratorium and maybe hold it off for a little better studies and stuff like that. I don't know whether that's an option. We've reached out to do that, but.
So what made you feel you had to issue a conditional use permit for that area down south? Is that not, is there something in your governing documents that say you have the right to do that, or do not have the right to do it?
Outside of the fact that you elected us as commissioners, no.
I'm sorry?
Outside of the fact that you elected us as commissioners, I guess not. At that time, we felt like that area was an okay area. We could, you know, live with that. If they'd have come with an area north of 36, I guarantee you I would have had questions about that. But be that as it may.
Not up here.
What makes the difference from up there to down there, Dennis?
The amount of people living in the area, you know, they can hold back from you. Well, they can hold back from your area. There's more open area than there is up here, you know, but we've got to live with what we got.
Okay, so what made you feel you had to issue a conditional use permit for that? If you felt you had to issue a conditional use permit for that small area, why are you not required to issue it for the entire county? You've got people out there signing up leases, and according to what you've done here, they really are not entitled to be in that.
They can sign the leases anywhere in the county, whether we had that original resolution or not.
I think you set a precedent.
No.
That document that we drafted through our council, we found out, excuse me, later, probably would not stand up in any court of law based on several cases that they cited.
So if it would not stand up, but when you wrote it originally, you felt that it was appropriate, why would you not go to the extent of figuring out what you had to do to make it valid?
Well, that's a good question.
I mean, that's the number one question on people's minds. The ironic thing is, with the research I've done, I don't think it was adequate to start with. I don't think it was enough.
Well,
but yet at the same time,
right, yeah.
it was something. It was something. And at one point in time, you determined that it was necessary, that it was important, and what changed. Why did we not step back and say, what do we need to do to make this legal?
I'd like to say that, I really don't want to be a hard ass, but I like to come on late, but you've known me for years. The size of a company has never put any fear in me as to what I had to challenge. So your comment there that the company is X billion dollars, I've had many arguments over the years with AT&T and things like you shouldn't. I think it's like you've given up, and they're going to set the rules. We
have not given up, Bob. I'm going to tell you that the only thing we've done is because of the size of the company. We've enlisted, you know, this lawyer out of Kansas City to help us understand the size of this. But I'm telling you that the reason, when you get companies as large as Next Energy and them, when they want to take you to court, they've got 10, 15 lawyers, and we can fight it. I mean, we can fight it, but I don't think there's enough money in Nemaha County to fight the system. I don't. I mean, goes back to, you know, your school consolidations and all the things, you know. It's all, how much money are you willing to spend to put this in rest? Now, we're in the situation, we've got to live with it, and according to our information, we're trying to get this through our pilot agreement to make it an agreeable situation for all of Nemaha County.
Okay, so the big issue really is setback. Setback goes into health and environment. Setback just goes into visual appearances and what it's going to do to the assessed value of a piece of property. So that's what you really have to work on. And you're letting the industry dictate that. It sounds to me like that you're letting the industry dictate that to you. And you know damn good and well, their desire is to put as many out there as they can because that's what they're going to get paid for. We're going to get out of your taxpayer dollar.
But why should each county have to fight this? Why didn't the state of Kansas see this coming years ago? Why didn't our state representatives and the people in the state and the federal government?
We can go right back and the same thing, now, correct me if I'm wrong. I understand they have a 10-year tax abatement.
Lifetime.
Lifetime tax abatement.
For the original
footprint.
On the original footprint. How do you find the original footprint?
That's what the agreement, that's what your original agreement was.
The original footprint is signed for that purpose, and that was.
And when you define the original footprint, is that this
around South 63?
Conditional use permitted area? Yeah. Is that their original footprint, and that's got a lifetime tax abatement?
But with that in question, at a previous meeting, one of the representatives stated that they thought that the new footprint would also be tax exempt for life.
I'm sure it would be. You've said the precedent's already been established.
Well, have they already decided that new footprint that they put in, is it tax exempt for life? Because that was a big, huge.
That will be determined by the Director of Taxation, Department of Revenue, State of Kansas.
Has someone looked in to see if that they've applied for that already?
I don't know that.
I don't know. Maybe Spencer can give us some insight on that.
Have you guys applied for that?
No, we've not. And actually, we didn't confirm at that meeting if that was our view. We said that was what we were looking into with our attorney.
Do you guys plan on applying for that?
Well, before we do apply, we have to get the official opinion of our attorneys on what that status would be before we would be applying.
So we should assume yes. Do you plan to do it?
I mean, I don't assume anything until I get the final word, so.
How long does that take before we can determine? Because that would be a big controversy in the pilot agreement about what we would receive in turn if that footprint, which is substantially larger, would be different. Do you have a timeline?
Well, that footprint too, and Commissioner Henry mentioned that as well, is that's not the final footprint. So I don't think anyone should consider that as the final proposal here.
Is it bigger than the second footprint?
No, it's not. But I will say, into what the opinion of our attorneys will be, that's happening in parallel while the county is negotiating on what we will be required to uphold based on setbacks, based on other items related.
Will that be done after January when you say that you'll know where the turbines will be? Or prior to that?
Prior to it.
Your company's out here signing leases, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And people are signing leases that they don't even know that they can even qualify to participate.
That's right.
That doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense to me.
Well, they're not leases, they're options, so they're lease options.
Oh, well, that does make a difference. I'd like, could I have a copy of that lease and that option so I can review it?
Yeah, I mean, there's been plenty that have been circulated throughout the county, so and I can get you a copy as well.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I would like to say, we've had a guy come to our place from Xterra several times. We even had one 5 or 6 years ago from Xterra. It was James Carney. We didn't sign up then, and that's probably when a lot of people did sign up, but they didn't know half what was going on. And now this guy, he showed me a map, nice guy, real nice guy. These are all your neighbors who've signed up. It was green everywhere. And my mind wasn't thinking fast enough to say, well, I know those people didn't sign, but it made me think that everybody else was signing. And that's not right. That is not right. That's false pretenses.
I mean, I can't, was this
Well, so you're the
recently?
representative here. Yeah, recently, it was probably about a month ago. Yeah, it was, yeah, very nice guy. I consider him a friend.
There's some of that.
But the secrecy, and he could never tell us, where do you have a lot of land? Which land do you have? Well, I can't tell you that. Why can't you? I just can't tell you that. The secrecy of this is not right. And so for people, if the footprints have been changed and people sign leases, and I don't think that they should be held to those leases. If the rules have changed after people's leases were signed, I don't think they should be in effect anymore.
Dennis, I go along with Jenny there. I was just talking to an attorney this morning, and he said a lot of people have come to him who signed an agreement under false pretense from the representative. And, you know, once you sign that contract, there's nothing you can do. But, you know, there's a lot of people that have signed not knowing what that contract said. I almost fell in the same thing. But you can't do anything on that, but...
Well, you know, and it is serious, and you know, this false pretenses, I don't know, and that's every lawyer's view. Every person's got a different view on that, and that's probably, I don't know, that's one of them things where, you know, could we bring something up or could use and fight it and win? It would be a very costly task. I can just about bet that once you're in that contract, and I've talked to 3 or 4 different people on that situation, lawyers and such, and they pretty well, once you're in that contract, it's pretty hard to get out.
Hey Dennis, our county attorney hasn't been here in the last couple of meetings. Is he not required to be at these meetings?
No.
It seems like it would be beneficial for him to be here.
Dennis?
You want to text him? Yes, Chris?
Saturday, I talked to one of my neighbors, and he had received a contract. 2 gentlemen from next door come to him, and they told him, you know, he could look it over. They'd get back with him in a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks come by, they come back. They sat down at his table, asked him if he was ready to sign. He said, no, I got a few questions. One of the 2 gentlemen grabbed the contract that he had laying there on the table, stuck it in his notebook, shut the book up. They talked for a half hour. Then he pulled out a new contract completely and tried to get him to sign it. Total different contract. Wasn't even supposed to be the same one. Now, how much of that is going on already? How many people have already done that same thing? Thought they signed something and in return got something totally different. You can't tell me he's the only one.
I think that's a question Nextera should answer. Not so much our commissioners, but Nextera.
Well, I would want to verify that one of the agreements wasn't from the other developer, because I know our form of contract has not changed.
I talked to him yesterday to make sure what he said Saturday was correct, and he said that it was 2 guys from Nextera, a short fat guy and a tall skinny younger guy.
Tall skinny younger guy.
He doesn't have any idea your name for it, but
I couldn't let that go by.
We don't have a taller, skinny land agent, so I'm not sure who that would have been. As far as the other person, I know who that is. But I can't say, I mean, I know we've only had one form of lease for this entire project, so I don't know, you know, where he thought the 2 different contracts were, but that's all I can say.
If they took it to one of their attorneys and they didn't like some of the wording in there, was there any changes though made sometimes to some of those contracts?
I mean, yeah, I mean,
There is
you know,
some
we provide
wording.
something, yeah, some slight changes.
But as far as a set
there's a set
contract, everybody gets the
Correct.
same thing.
Correct.
When they first approach.
Correct.
It could have been Invenergy, could have been a different company.
He said they were both at the same time, same two people both times from NextEra.
And this,
He
this
did-
was this Saturday?
That's when I talked to him was Saturday. It was, I don't know when the actual date was this happened. Another concern he had was he leased all his land to the state for walking and hunting. And he brought that up that, is this gonna be okay yet? And they told him, yes, that's fine, no problem. But the day they come back to sign, they did tell him though that it's up to you, it's stuck on you. If somebody out there hunting does shoot at one of those towers and messes something up, that falls back onto the landowner, not NextEra. So the landowner is gonna be liable for that. And you know how many road signs around here get shot up on a weekly basis? You're getting more targets out there to shoot at, they're gonna shoot at them. So these landowners are gonna be stuck with it.
The question about the hunting has come up before, Chris, so,
I don't know if I'm right by saying this or not, but I think there needs to be at least a minimum of a 10 times the height of the tower setback. That's what I've seen is used a fair amount in Europe. I can't find the exact place I found that. Visser had showed me that the other day, and I cannot come up with where that was at, but that was the standard that they are using over there. And I don't think it's anything out of line. It's not a deal breaker for NextEra, it's not a deal breaker for Invenergy. Be 5,000 foot. And if that's not the case, if it's going to be closer, is NextEra planning on buying out farms, homes, residences that cannot stand over there if they're all around them? Because I want to know now so that I can get an assessment of my valued property instead of waiting until after they're up and automatically lose 25 to 50% of the value of my property.
we have no really rules or way of knowing what's going to happen on your evaluation.
But you know it's going to.
Originally?
There's been multiple studies at a minimum of 25% decrease instantly. If you got them things anywhere close to it.
Surely there's been some studies done within the, don't you have an association of Kansas Counties Commissioners Association? Surely there's some data available in that organization.
Isn't there anything on the ones up at Byrne? Has it changed in the last 10 years since they've been up?
Well, the problem is, you're gonna look long and hard to find another wind farm in Kansas that has the exposure to residences that this one will. And the one up north doesn't. Well, Doug's parents are the closest up there. They're about 3/4 of a mile from the closest turbines in the south, or the east 20, and everybody else is about a mile from a turbine up there. So,
And they're smaller.
and there are 400-foot turbines instead of 480 or 90s. The homes up there are all farm homes. There's not any tract, 6-acre tract homes, except yours is probably the only one, Doug, that's on a smaller tract, if you will. So, and you're a mile and a tenth, right?
Yep.
And by the way, Spencer, Darren's been doing a lot of mapping on the recorded leases, and what'd you tell me? How many townships does NextEra have leases in?
Actually, there are wind leases in every township in the county, but NextEra has wind leases in all but 2 townships in Nemaha County.
So we're talking about footprint.
So your footprint, and Dennis said it a couple weeks ago at the meeting, we may as well draw a line around the whole county. That's their wind farm footprint.
And that's what I alluded to earlier. There's people out here signing these, and then all of a sudden, they're gonna put you on, we want to participate too. They put you on in the, on the spot that you've only provided for this small area down south, in the south end of the district.
On the footprint map that they have set up, it shows a 2 by 2 square mile around Wetmore, Goff, Corning, Centralia.
It's a larger area.
Is that going to be held up? Because his boy Jason told me the other day that he talked to, it was either Spencer or somebody here at one of the meetings said that that is not the case. They can put them within 1,400 feet of a city.
I don't know about that. I do know that there's land leased up to the city limits of Corning and Centralia.
It was talked about that there really was no perfect setback from any town according to any of their agreements.
Well,
that was spoken to my husband.
And of course,
at
you know,
the last meeting.
if they accept 2 miles, then are they saying that's the acceptable distance, you know, and that's the other side of the question that I get.
So why is it acceptable to be 2 miles away when you live in town versus 1,400 feet when you live in the country?
But it's not 2 miles. It's a mile from the center of the city, center of the town.
I say we put one inside. And the reason I say that is 1,400 feet from your house, Dennis.
I didn't catch the first part of that.
Sonic is 1,400 feet from your house. Let's put a 500-foot wind turbine right there.
Spencer, is there any standard amount of setback from a town?
No, there's not. Exclusion areas can be factored into agreements, such like the one that's being negotiated with the county.
It's not with the individual landowners, it's just with the county?
Right. For something like a town, yes.
Yeah. So the little box around each city was to just make everybody think there was a setback in place, but really there is not.
No, that's our setback for our mapping, internal mapping. When we do our design, those are the setbacks that are included in the analysis.
And how
So those
far
are
is that?
self-imposed setbacks.
How far is that?
It's the mile from the, or more than a mile, I'm trying to think what the actual distance was. It's the 2 mile buffer.
From the center of town?
Yes.
Or from the outskirts of town?
From the center of town.
Spencer, you mentioned that outside the footprint, the lease options. Does that allow the landowner to opt out then? At a point, what's a lease option different than the lease inside the footprint?
There's the option term, and then once the option term is up, then we can't lease the ground. So you have the fixed option term, and then if we don't exercise the option, then we're not going to lease the ground.
Okay.
It's an option to lease.
And so it's not an option for us, it's you.
Right, it's like a purchase option on any piece of land. It's the,
And what's the?
Well, one-sided.
Yeah.
So what is the time period on that lease option?
3 years and then a possible extension for another 3 years. And then that comes with an option payment made during each of those years.
Okay.
So you're telling
With
us.
an option of a third lease for a total of 9 years.
No, 3 and 3.
So Spencer, I have a question. Do the commissioners have any power at all in the setback amount?
Yes, that's
Okay,
why.
so if they say, okay, it's 2 miles or nothing, what happens then?
I mean, that's what negotiation is. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I can't say.
But if you don't go with it though, I mean, it could be a stalemate, right? If they say 2 miles or nothing, nope, I can't live with that, what happens then? Will you take it to court?
I mean, I can't say. It's all. I mean, if it was completely legal, then you're right, and that's a stalemate, and then we can't do anything. If there's something that was illegal for the state of Kansas, then we go to court. But that's, I mean, that's because it's whether it's the law or not.
So the commissioners do have some power then over this whole situation? They do have some.
We do in this pilot agreement. That's what I said. We're negotiating with this pilot agreement to come up with the setback that we feel is adequate. I'm not fund, the state of Kansas or the federal government put us all in this position. They had to know that when they signed this agreement and shook hands with all the wind companies, that they wanted green energy, that they was dumping a lot off on the local community.
Right, Dennis, but I think that by us fighting it out here, we're in the trenches. I don't want somebody in Topeka telling me that I've got to live with the same setbacks that somebody in Goodland, Kansas has to live with. I don't think that that's fair either. So I think that there's a reason that it's a good thing that we're here, and I appreciate your guys' work on that. I know there's a lot of spilled milk that we've been going over, but the one thing that I see today that struck me as a little bit hard is, and I appreciate your work, but the idea that you're going to leave things such that in the future, if my son has trouble sleeping or my wife's grumpy in the morning when she wakes up, that I'm going to have the ability to sue these guys. I want this to be handled by you guys first, because knowing my financial situation, I wouldn't last very long going against a $17 billion company. So I just appreciate your guys' work, and hopefully you keep that in mind, getting this set up at the beginning instead of...
Well, we don't want that, but like I said, you know, it's a step to where we feel like you would have some input. You know, I mean, and I feel like rather than they just ignore you completely, we don't want that.
Well, we're loud enough, you can't ignore us completely.
I personally don't want them to feel like that once they get a signed lease, they can just do whatever they want to do and go. I know that Spencer says that we have a lot to say about the setbacks. That's all to be seen.
Dennis,
we hope.
I'll throw your predecessors under the bus for you on this deal, but when you say you don't like the fact that the state and the federal government threw this down on you, back in 05 and 06, both of those entities send information out to counties and cities on siting of wind turbines and guidelines for commissioners and city councils to follow. Your predecessors didn't take heed to that. So that's why we're in the position we're in. And I guess my biggest question is, the mistake was made at that point, what do we got to do to fix it? And I just hope that, you're using the resources of Mr. Neal to figure out what our options are. Because if we don't put some constraints in, it will be ugly.
Oh, this Mr. Neal, is he, what's his background?
He is a lawyer, represents, normally he represents like NextEra or Green Line or somebody like that wants to put a pipeline or a line through the state of Kansas, and he's on their side, but when I approached him and we talked to him through a local contact here, he says he would very much like to be a representative of Nemaha County and do what he can do, but he has a background of understanding the industry.
But he also has a conflict of interest.
Well, he's not working for NextEra, though.
He's not working for any of the
But
wind
has he in
companies.
the past?
No, he's worked for pipelines and maybe, you know, but no, he's not.
Dennis?
Yes.
I got a comment and maybe a question. If my absentee landowner next to me lives in the city and I decided to lease the property next to him and place old junk cars next to him, I think I find out real quick from the city that there was an ordinance that I could not do that. Now, how come the city can have an ordinance? And it would go back. I mean, it wouldn't be just the people that are putting them on now. It'd be the people who had them on there before, the ordinance. So why can't the county, you guys, or somebody have the authority to print some kind of an ordinance that says you can't do this? I mean, you understand my question?
You can, but you're not going to be able to probably do anything before today or whenever we get the ordinance passed, and therefore NextEra has all their footprint already made. My understanding is that'd be a tough one.
But the cities of Trey can write an ordinance.
I understand.
And it goes back as far as they.
And it'll have to go through a public meeting. They would have to go through and have all the people sign off on it and say that it's a good deal, but we would be in the same situation if we wanted to pass one. But very, very much the same as my worry here, and when I've owned houses here in Seneca, that I don't know how you describe it, but the houses next to me wasn't very well taken care of, and two on the other sides of me was vacant. Nobody'd been lived in them for several years, and, you know, and to me, I didn't like that, you know, but I had no control over that outside of buying the particular project. If I had enough money to buy it all, then I could do that. But as far as, the only thing I could do is move to a different area that I felt was safe, to where the value of my home wouldn't be affected by what my neighbors would do. Now, I don't know what you do. I've struggled with that, and I kind of visited with, you know, like the city of Seneca. They went through zoning type stuff, you know, for the same purpose of what you got. They didn't want buildings, they didn't want this, they didn't want that. But I see a lot of things that either slide through the cracks or they just close their eyes to them. I don't know what the deal is. But anyway, we, yeah, it should have been covered by zoning many years ago. When I first became a commissioner, I ate dinner with the Saline County commissioners, and I'm going to tell you, the whole dinner, I heard nothing but, boy, if we didn't have zoning, we'd be all right. They hated zoning. Well, now, whether they still do or not, I don't know. But they was, 6-7 years ago, they was really adamant that they lived in the country and they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that, they had to have permission to do this. And so there's good and bad points of that. Yeah, that being said, it should have been done. And like Darren said, you know, we dropped the ball several years ago, and now we get to try and work our way out of a tough situation.
Dennis, on you're negotiating with NextEra on the pilot agreement. How is that going to carry out? I mean, the pilot agreement does nothing for Invenergy as far as setbacks. So if you say you reach a pilot or a setback with NextEra in the pilot agreement, how are we protecting against anybody else?
Well, kind of setting the precedent, we'd hope. You know, saying, okay, listen, this is where we're going to be, or we're going to draw our foot in the sand.
So is there no possible way of doing a resolution that establishes a setback?
We're working on that. We're working on that. We've tested many avenues, yes.
I'm just curious, I could be totally off base here, but would it ever be possible, I mean, Tim, I'm not exactly sure where you live, if you have the threat of these things around you, but would it ever be possible to have a task force or something of people who will be greatly affected by this, along with your commissioners, to talk with NextEra, so that we can actually have representation with NextEra of someone who's going through this? Is that ever possible?
As a negotiating process, I don't think that would probably
I feel like that's what we're doing right now, though.
Tim, are you surrounded by the thought of wind turbines coming in? I don't know exactly where you live, I'm sorry.
I can't answer that. I guess I haven't looked at the new maps that Darren had, and all the ground is leafed up.
Well, I think people who are actually going through...
Well, but how many acres inside of those townships, though, too? I don't know.
But someone like a landowner who is surrounded by these, doesn't want them, they would think differently than someone who's not threatened by them.
Right.
So possibly to have them there to negotiate with NextEra, because they are the ones under the gun, you know, the landowners who can't move to a different place because their land property might go down. But it's just
We're a little bit tied up right now, though. The reason we don't say a lot is we're not supposed to. We need to get our ducks in order, then we're gonna bring it to you people. We're gonna bring you all the numbers. We're not gonna have an agreement. Then it'll be an open session with all the numbers we have on our term sheet, as he calls it. He'll be standing right here with us,
Who's he?
our attorney.
Okay.
And we'll hash out all those numbers. We'll hash out all the numbers. It's nothing we're signing, there's nothing gonna be signed in a while.
Okay, so when you say your attorney, is it?
James Neal.
Okay, all right.
So, I mean, it's a process, and I understand.
Well, it's.
Each week we learn more, okay? All these questions, but then it gets repetitious though too. The same question gets asked again. Until we get those numbers on this sheet and then come to you, then we got something we can really negotiate, I mean, with you guys.
Well, as long as when those numbers get on that sheet, that doesn't put some more things.
That does
in
not put
concrete.
anything in a bind.
Okay. Well, I just appreciate what you guys go through. I don't know that there's anybody here who'd want to be in your position, so I appreciate the heat you're taking. So, you know, if anybody here could give you a little bit of insight on what they're going through, because there's a lot of secrecy on our end that we have not been told. I don't know that you guys know about. It's just not good business. So.
I feel like that our attorney's been armed, you know, and I've offered to forward him, I give him copies of several of the emails that I've got, you know, and we've talked about these concerns of the citizens, what they're talking about, what they want, and what this is. We keep encouraging him and telling him, listen, you are, in this pilot agreement is where we got to sit down. This is where we got to come across and try and represent our people.
Maybe he should hear from some of the people here too as well, to get it from the people as opposed to.
Yes.
He was here on December 17th, I know,
Yeah.
when we met right here.
And with the holidays, it's been a little
Right.
tough.
I understand.
He was planning on being here today and it didn't work out, but next
Well,
week he
and
will
I
be
was
here.
too. See, I was planning on being here last week and that didn't work out, so it just happens.
And maybe I'm wrong, but you know, I know you say that, and I've heard it a couple times here today, that if you live in town, you don't have any worries.
Oh, no.
Well, if that's the situation, maybe I should excuse myself and leave it up to Gary and Tim. You know, I have no problems. If that's the way the people feel, and that's what they want, then that's what we should do. I took this job as a representative of all Nemaha County, and hopefully I try and do the best we can do. You know, but like I said, you inherit certain situations, and this is a situation where we got to work our way out of it, do the best we can do for the people of Nemaha County. It's not the people of Seneca, it's not the people of Sabetha, or Wetmore, or Corning. It's Nemaha County. We're all going to be affected by this, no matter how we do.
Well, some more than others, though. I mean, that's just.
I'd like to ask one question, and this is a question that you know the story about uranium one? Well, anyway, it's a situation that happened during the last administration that nobody's been able yet to figure out what the benefit to the United States was. What is the benefit to this county, Nemaha County, of this?
Of the new wind farm, you're saying?
Yeah. What's the benefit to Nemaha County and its residents?
I guess you could measure it in dollars and cents. That's not the way I'm approaching it.
How do you, when it's taxed, when it has a lifetime tax abatement, how do
No,
you?
but there'll be a contribution is what they call it now instead.
In lieu of?
Yes. So it can be appropriated out as much as would be if that's how we determine it needs to be.
And in defense of NextEra, I feel like we're very lucky we're dealing with NextEra and not some of the other wind farms that's been through Kansas. Because I can tell you from talking to other commissioners that some of them are not going as far as NextEra as they are. And I feel like that they've been up front, they've come to the table with us, and we're negotiating. Do they have to? I don't know. I've had some horror stories from other counties that, you know, that, but it's.
You may want to check a few other states because they have horror stories too. You may want to go further than Kansas.
Sure, sure.
Dennis, a question. Oh, go ahead.
I just said maybe this has been covered already, but is there a process or a way that maybe the project gets tabled or put on hold until we decide if zoning's right for our county?
My understanding is not.
I think that would be correct.
So what's the reasoning behind that, I guess?
Because of the leases that are already signed, is what I would say. And
Once that lease is signed, that makes a big difference. If you put in zoning ordinances now for say, well, that lease is already signed, you can't, so according to our attorney, you can't go back.
So we're beating our head against the wall?
No,
I don't think so.
like I said, we have the pilot agreement, and that's our.
Next area.
We got a few things to work through. Darren, I thought, no, we're not beating our head against the wall at all. But until we get those numbers, we're not there yet. Then we got something we can deal with. You know, is it 3/4 of a mile? Is it a mile? Once we get that on there, then we can come to you and say, here's what we got. You like it or you don't like it. There, you know, right now it's just numbers. We're getting them all from you now. We're hearing, okay, miles, probably too close yet. Can we get that in there? I don't know. What's that?
Let's start out with 10 miles and work backwards from there.
Yeah, I know. You know, we're gonna do the best we can, and we're gonna come back to
What
you.
I'm saying is don't give them the 3,000 feet right off the bat. Make sure it's a damn sight other than that.
Well, and this is where my question is what is legal? What can we do? What can't we do? Whether it's the payment in lieu of taxes, whether it's the setback, you know, the road maintenance agreement, all of this is all going to be included. But let's say that, Chris, for instance, we put in, we say we want 5,000 or 6,000 feet. Okay, setback, and that's it. They come back and say, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to give you 2,500 feet, take it or leave it. You know, I don't know, can they do that? You know, I don't know. That's the questions that we got to get answered. You know, and I know it's kind of like NextEra told us about expanding this footprint. We asked them, can you do that? And they say, well, their lawyers feel like they can.
Well, the reason they expanded their footprint is because they couldn't get enough guys in the original footprint to sign.
Well, I don't know, there's a lot of them signed.
There's a big hole. There was a big hole in the middle of it.
Yeah, there's a big hole in the middle of it, I agree, but and that's the thing we have to do. And if, as you need to get with the people that haven't signed. And that's our option. The less land we get signed up in Nemaha County, the better off our fight is going to be for what we got to going. But it may be the other way. It may be if they don't get only certain farms signed up, then the setbacks may have to go closer because they want more wind farms. And at the same time, then the farmers that set up, instead of getting 2 windmills, are going to get 3, and their cash cow is going to get bigger. And so, you know, there's a lot involved in this. I struggle. I know I've gotten emails that say that there's only 2% of the people in Nemaha County that's for this situation. I disagree with that 100%. I think, I don't know where it'd be if we had to have a vote on it today, but from the calls I get, it's not 2%, I can tell you that. Now, I can understand the economic benefits, and I don't blame people because they got to make their farm payments, they got to do their things. Times are not as good now as they was when we had higher commodity prices, but that's, like I said, we've really expanded, you know, and we've forwarded enough, all the information we have, and hopefully you understand that your voice is heard. It's all going to come down to this negotiation and whether we can come with them. You know, there's no cut and dried thing. It's just like the payment in lieu of taxes, and Bob probably has some input on this, but you know, if we had $2 million as the payment in lieu of taxes, and they said, no, we're only going to give you $50,000. That's all you're going to get. Well, what's legal, what ain't, what can we do, what can't we do? You know, I mean, there is no legal precedence anywhere on any of this stuff.
What you can do is make sure the county does not go backwards.
Well, I understand that, yeah.
And that's about
and
what's
going
gonna happen
backwards
if they
is,
don't give you a big enough payment in lieu of tax.
that is to be, I'm just using that as a part of the thing about the setbacks and everything. What is our rights as a county when it comes to negotiation, you know? Is it already set in concrete? Does NextAir already have the numbers and we just haven't seen them? We don't know. We have no idea. I do know that we're the last part of the equation. I can pretty well tell you that, because they've already taken and got all the other I's dotted. They've got the land lease, they've got everything done, they know how many, they know how much money they're going to get, they've got it all sold. The only thing they don't know is the concerns we got right here in this room. And to me, I don't like the way that process is set up. But we live with what we got. We got to go and respect, again, we got to respect each other's rights. You know, and hopefully we can live as neighbors. You know, because we've seen many things in our county, and whether it's schools, city, whatever issues that have caused people to cross the street so they don't have to meet somebody on the street. We hope that don't happen, and we don't want that to come to fruition in here. You know, when you go into church and sit down in a pew, 3 people get up and move. You know, we don't want that situation to happen in Nemaha County. We need to have open communication. We need to have things on our side. Rick, I seen you come in. Are you pretty close to the wind farm, aren't you? Out in Marshall County?
Yes, yeah.
How far are they from you?
They're actually 4 or 5 miles from me.
I didn't know if they got far enough south to get to your...
But they are, I know several guys. They're within a mile of my brother's house.
I understand.
And he does hear the wind, and he has a flicker effect, and that's over a mile away.
Yeah. And I've talked to your cousin too, and there's been some issues over there, but again...
If you guys would have stuck to your original 3,000-foot setback, you wouldn't be having this problem.
Yeah.
Because these windmill companies wouldn't be here. The only reason they're in Nemaha County is because you did away with that. And because they're not going to agree to 3,000 feet or more, I can tell you that right now. They're not going to do it.
Yeah.
They're going to hold their guns on this 1,400 feet and count them. So you have every right to stand up to them.
Do you know how big the windmills are over there?
Not exactly, no. I'm thinking 350.
Yeah, I was thinking they're less than 400 feet. They're smaller ones.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm a little bit offended with one of your statements about because they're a $17 billion company, you can't fight them.
No, we can fight them.
Missouri has stopped this power line that when it was going through my place. Kansas just kind of shoved it down our throat. But the people of Missouri stopped it twice. And Clean Line is still trying the 3rd time, and they're going to have to fight them again. But the people over there stopped this big $1 billion company. So don't tell these people that they can't fight, they can. And they can win.
There's a cost.
They
You
can
know,
win.
if we as a county had to dig it in, I'll tell you what, the cost would be, our budget would have to be very, very high.
Have you guys already determined the amount of money you're willing to spend on that?
I don't know.
Yes,
And like I said, then it gets back to, are we 2%, 98%, the 50/50, is it, you know, we would have to have a lot of information to do that kind of stuff, but like I said, we're hoping that we can solve this problem through negotiation and the pilot agreement, and you just go with what, and if anybody's got other lawyers that they think that we need to be talking to, we're willing to talk to them and listen, you know.
Dennis, we hear here a lot, it's a process putting on, working on. Is there anything here to stop them from coming in and start digging like they are in Brown County? I mean, can they come in and just start digging? Because it's happening over there.
Yeah, probably not. Jay?
The road use agreement.
The road maintenance agreement is one, but like I said, you know, with the equipment they brought in over there, you know, it was nothing different than what you drive up and down the roads every day with.
Right.
You know, and you don't have a road maintenance agreement with Nemaha County, but I would agree that as a company, they should have a road maintenance agreement, and we're working on that deal, and hopefully next week we'll have something to solidify our situation.
So you're inviting us all back next week?
Well, it's fine. Yeah, we'll invite you back every week. I have no problem. But like I said, it's like Tim says, a lot of repetition. There's new items come up every week, different ways to look at it, but appreciate Lori's input, you know, on the health part of this situation. It's something that we need that information to go forward, because I personally got a feeling that if we're going to do anything, it's going to have to come that way.
I have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it zoning the county the fastest, easiest way to control this? And whether you go IBC or UBC, you can do special sessions on that, and they can be retroactive, because until you give them permission, like if you zone the county and you went IBC and you said we're going to go commercial IBC, you have to follow commercial IBC. You have to have a building permit, and we have to grant it, and you have to meet and you can, even if you want IBC, you can put special sessions on different aspects of the zoning.
Well, I don't know, we're not getting
Actually, IBC is International Building Code, and you don't even have to institute that into zoning.
Yeah.
You do not have to have that as a part of zoning. You can establish zoning that is very simple, very easy. If you guys will do the research and have your attorney do the research, there's stuff that can be done. And I'm tired of having to do everybody's job for them. If you'll dig and look, this can be done fairly simply, and people can still build their sheds, people can do whatever they want to on their properties. It's not that hard. It's done in thousands of counties across this country. It's done in a large majority of the counties in the state of Kansas. It's not hard.
Do we just need to find someone that wants to do it? Is that an issue? Or?
Yeah, I mean, if we're open to whatever. I mean, there's nothing. We represent yous, but like I say, right now, our indication has been that timing is not on our side. Yes, ma'am?
I have some question. What is the protocol for becoming a zoned county? Whose decision ultimately is that? Is it put to a vote? Is it at the commissioner level? Let's just hypothetically say who initiates that? I don't even know the protocol for that. Maybe Brad knows. I can
It'd be the
explain it.
commissioners who would make that determination, and I think I would set you the procedure that must be followed to actually go through that process.
You'd have to have a zoning committee, probably. I don't know if, Darren, when you guys are talking about the minimum zoning thing, you'd probably still have to have the 8 or 10 member of the county to be on this, serve on this committee. But
Dennis, can I follow up on my thing before? I'm not leaning towards zoning. I'm wondering if you can't. One of my sons was in the business of kind of working on cars, and his stuff kind of got getting kind of deep. The state come out and said, you will cover that up, out in the middle of the country, nowhere. Now there's some kind of an ordinance for site, or something somewhere, that if it's unsightly, that it's got to be taken care of. I can't believe that as a county commissioner, you can't make rules of some sort that don't have to go through zoning. Darren and I have this discussion a lot here, so.
the ones that we've had since I've been involved with the commission have come from the state of Kansas. The health department in the state of Kansas has come to us and said, this certain place has been noted that, you know, it needs to be cleaned up, and you need to go address these people and do it. And then if they absolutely refuse, then we as a county can go in and clean it up at our expense and then try and collect. But that's the only thing I've been involved with.
Big KDHE, I'm sure, is what you were referring to. And they do, yeah, most of it gets in hazardous waste, is what they cite for that, I would guess.
And tires and stuff. Go ahead, Galen.
Well, I was going to just say, I wouldn't mind taking my agenda spot for just a second.
Okay.
Is that all right? So, I'm Galen Ackerman, if you don't know me. I want to talk about local business. I see Glenn back there. We, and all due respect, Spencer, your company was not invited into Nemaha County. Let's be very clear. So, we need to think about our local businesses, locally founded, whether they're in Bern, Sabetha, Centralia, Kelly, wherever they're at, Wetmore, and realize that there's a lot of impact here. And those businesses invested here, they put risk in it. It takes a lot to get a business going. They've thrived. They hire our people. Their people live here. They live here. They all pay their taxes every year. They don't get 10-year or lifetime tax abatement. Maybe they do on their new plant that they put in, but by doing that they agree to provide a new job. So let's never forget that it's the local industry and local landowners and local farmers that have made this county what it is. All right, my second thing is I'm going to yield my spot to Dr. Detweiler. She's got some comments that she'd like to share, and Melissa, if you wouldn't mind coming up here, it'll be easier for everybody to see.
So I was just going to send you guys a letter and leave it at that. I was encouraged to come read the letter.
Thank you.
So that's what this is. For those of you who don't know me, Melissa Detweiler, my husband and I live in rural, between Bern and Sabetha. We have the 2 vet clinics, the Bern Sabetha veterinary clinics in the area. So this was a letter I wrote here recently. I will just read it because it sums up what I wanted to say. Dated December 25th, 2018. Commissioners Burdick, Henry, and Scobie. My words are written this evening with a troubled and conflicted heart. In the past several weeks, I've been on the periphery of the current discussions regarding the proposed wind farms in our county. I have intentionally maintained this position, and the fact that I've been silent may come as a surprise to some of you, Tim and Gary, as it was my face that you were used to seeing, and it was my voice that was so often heard back in 2012. For any of you who may not remember all of the details, it was my husband Kurt and I who led the charge in getting Resolution 2012-8 signed into effect. It was us who began to dig deeper about the long-term effects of living under the literal shadow of a wind turbine. It was a situation we had never considered until the concept was laid out on our dining room table. You see, we were negotiating the sale of a small acreage on which we planned to build our forever home. In the final moments, we were informed there was a wind lease on that section. That's when we started researching and asking questions. We wanted to know what it really meant to live 1/4 mile from an industrial wind turbine, which is the industry standard. Because we had discovered our prospective home would have 3 of those turbines within that distance. It didn't take us long for us to determine that for our family, it wasn't what we wanted. We were not willing to take the risks. So we began a months-long mission of talking, learning, and organizing. We knew without a doubt that we would not buy the land that we had always dreamed of unless we could be certain wind turbines were out of the picture. We were elated with the decision the Commission made by passing Resolution 2012-8. We were finally able to move forward with confidence and began the process of building our dream home. And I'd like for you to take note of the date that I wrote this letter. December 25th, 2018 is the 5-year anniversary of our move-in date. We gave our family the ultimate gift and entered into our home Christmas Day 2013, a day none of us will ever forget. Now we find ourselves back in the midst of uncertainty. Fear has crept back into our days. We wonder how many families will be deprived of the experience of growing permanent roots into our great county. We are tormented by the concept that our children will see their horizons permanently altered with nothing but the empty promises of corporate energy companies ensuring their health and prosperity. Recently, I was engaged in a conversation about my thoughts on the current situation. I told the individual that I imagined it's like a person being diagnosed with a chronic and painful condition for a second time. Is it life-threatening? Certainly not. But in many aspects, it is life-altering. We had been consumed with the fight all those years ago. It took up so many hours and weighed so heavily on our souls. When the resolution finally passed, it was as if the doctors had told us we were cured, to march forward with our lives without hesitation. And now it's as if that plaguing pain is back. And this time, it's bigger and more extensive than it ever was originally. So now we need to make the decision to fight or not all over again. Do we have it in us to take this on again? But if we don't, it could mean that hundreds of other families will be affected with the same condition. You may be wondering where I was in 2016 when the resolution was rescinded. Why didn't I speak up then? The short answer is that it was explained to me that there were folks in the southern part in a relatively unpopulated area of the county that really wanted a wind farm. We naively thought we were doing the right thing by not standing in their way. But that small project is no longer small. It has grown exponentially, like an uncontrollable outbreak. So this letter comes to you as an appeal, as a prayer, if you will. To Tim and Gary, I ask you to search back to what motivated you to pass the 2012 resolution in the first place. Something in your hearts told you it was the right thing to do. What was it? What spoke to you then? What changed? What caused you to overturn that decision? Was it truly a group of citizens who wanted to better their livelihoods? Or was it an international wind company? A company wishing to increase their profits and expand their reach into global renewable energy? It has been quoted by multiple sources that Resolution 2016-8 was, quote unquote, authored by NextEra Energy, not by our commissioners, the people sworn to be stewards of the citizens. The fact that has many people doubting the motives and the intentions of that resolution. How do you want your legacy as a Nemaha County Commissioner to be recorded? As a person who crusaded for the families living as your constituents, or as someone who furthered the agenda of a multi-billion-dollar corporation? So yes, I was silent in 2016. That was my fault and my cross to bear. But I can't continue that silence. I can't just step aside and allow two companies who don't care a fraction of a percent about me and my family to continue to write our destiny. I'd much rather place my hope in you, the men who have been elected to protect my family's quality of life. Will you please keep us in your regards? With much respect and reverence.
Thank you very much. Very well said. You have anything else?
I have one more thing to say.
Yes.
You did mention about, talk to your neighbors, make sure they don't sign. I've done that, and they've all signed. So that's basically, our options are, there's nothing left for us to do except for you guys. So that's all I want to say.
Can you delay your decision for like a year or two? There's nothing says you can't wait. Right? There's a lot of issues out here to be making people happy, and these guys are not doing it. They fly in here, they do what they have to do, then they're gone. They don't have to look at anything, they don't have to worry about what's being done, because these guys are gone. We're here.
Jim.
Words well spoken, and like I said, we're not going to sign anything until you all have a chance to see what it is, what our setbacks are, and what we've come up to. I don't know. Can we delay it? I don't know. How long can we? I mean, it gets back to the same situation of it ain't eminent domain, but it's almost once they sign the contracts. If they have enough leased land in Nemaha County, we're in trouble. I don't think that there's any other way to say it.
Well, then the setbacks is what will determine then. If it's a done deal, then the setbacks are the only option we have to play. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay, that's where we can stand firm. I mean, that's how I see it.
But how firm can we stand and how long can we stand? I don't know.
I believe in Bob and this other man. We can take them on. I don't know how.
Until they get tired of you on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I would not want to be in your shoes at all.
Well,
I'm sorry for the heat you're getting.
And
This is our livelihood, this is our families, and this is, it's being rammed in our throats, just like hog buildings have been rammed in our throats. And this is something else I cannot just sit back and watch. Because of the love of money, this easy money, that people fell for this thing without thinking it through, and that's what happens. The easy money. And it was a poor economy. Yeah, the times were tough, the drought was hard. It was an answer to a prayer for a lot of people, but then it comes around. What's it going to actually involve? Who is it actually going to involve? And that's what makes it tough. And that's when Nextera can sit back there. This reminds me of Christopher Columbus and the Indians. We are the Indians, Nextera is Christopher Columbus. They have an agenda. We are willing, we are friendly, we are naive. Welcome, come, and help us to help the wind energy. And then, what did the Indians go through? They were exploited, they had disease, everything. And the rest is history.
I have a question for Spencer. Spencer, is Nextera finished leasing land, or are you still leasing?
Just about finished.
And these are all options, not leases.
Correct.
Have all your leases been?
It's an option to lease.
Yeah, but it's not.
Option for you.
Yes.
Yeah, not us.
Yeah, I know, but
How often do you file your leases, or are they all leased, all of them filed?
Recorded?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, probably about a month delay or so.
So to me, it goes back to what,
Well, like I said, your thoughts are here, and I don't know, I wish my crystal ball was big enough to see what was coming down the tubes, but it's not, and so we will continue, and like I said, the main fight now we're on for is the non-participating landowner. And that includes the people that are living in Seneca now, or living in Sabetha or Wetmore, or whatever town in Nemaha County that are thinking of eventually building their forever home in Nemaha County. And we want that. You know, it's a dream of all of us. Some of us are able to do it, some of us, and now if this comes in, what is the future? What will 10 years down the road lead us to? We don't know. Change is something that you're always going to have. I know I've heard my dad say many times that he was glad that they finally come up with pipeline milkers. But, you know, that was change. Did we need to took more electricity? It took more of this, more of that, more chemicals. But, so, you know, I don't think as America they want to close their eyes to this. But your thoughts are well taken, and like I said, you're welcome to call me, contact me. I have no problem with that. So far as I know, I've gotten one call that I need to return yet that I haven't gotten done. But other than that, I think I've called most of the people back that have called me, and we'll go from there.
Dennis, just, I think one thing here, and you guys are put in a bad spot, but like working with the companies, it's pretty well documented on land, particularly house values dropping. You know, I for one, if they go in close to me, I'm probably gonna fight that on how much taxes I pay. You know, if the houses drop 20%, 30% taxes, I think these guys have to pay that. I think
we're taking that all into consideration with our deal, and I can't remember the exact verbatim, and I wish we had the tape of our meeting when we was approached to change this resolution for 2016, but as I remember it, there was indications that the values of the homes would not decrease. You know, there was again, false pretenses.
The next day will give you that information.
It's kind of false pretenses in a way, but like I said, but anyway, I don't have anything else. If anybody else has anything, Kim, you have
to address that
anything to
just a minute, Dennis, yeah, we can say all we want that it doesn't decrease our values, but I'll guarantee you, I do not make a $250,000 investment that I made in Nemaha County if I'd have known this was going to happen 5 years ago. I think that'll just stop. I mean, there's no way that that's going to happen. I just can't see that happening. Why anybody would search out and look for a prime piece of real estate underneath a windmill somewhere just doesn't even add up to me. But I think that's, so I don't think we want to hide behind the fact that our housing values are not going to be appreciated. I think that's pretty much a given. Just just for more thought.
I have one question, Spencer, I'd like to ask you, if you can verify this. If a non-participating landowner, if you come up to his property and there's no way of getting around it, can you lay cable down the roads to get around that non-participating landowner?
So for participating landowners next to a non-participating landowner.
Right, and you have to get through on the other side.
Right.
Can you go down the roads to lay cable around?
No, we have to go through it would have to be through a participating landowner's property.
Because there is instances where, and right now they're doing it over in Missouri, where they're laying cables down the middle of the road. Is it next era?
Yeah, your company did that in Missouri.
DeKalb, Missouri is.
In the middle of the road?
Not
across
in the middle.
the road or down?
Not in the middle, kind of on the side. But
yeah, right down the driving lane.
Okay, verify that that's not practice.
Yes,
and you said Missouri, Galen?
Yeah.
DeKalb, Missouri.
But don't I own the property clear to the center of the road?
You pay taxes on it.
I absolutely do.
Less the permanent easement.
Yeah.
So you guys can determine.
The township
whether
or the
not
county, it depends on this township or county.
You guys can determine whether or not the cable runs on my property next to the road.
Would that be in the road agreement?
They would have to come and ask for an easement if they're going to run it down the road or whatever. And we've had instances where maybe farmers sitting right here have kind of abused that easement considerably. They plant closer to the road, you know, and maybe your point's well taken. I own it anyway. Why can't I farm it? You know, so, but yeah, there's a lot of, but they're all questions we're going to have to answer down the road if the thing happens to go that far.
Do you know, can the county grant use of that county easement to a private corporation or individual?
What was that?
Can the county, with their permanent easement for road access, can they grant use of that easement to a private corporation?
I'd say, Brad, but I'd say not.
Generally, I mean like Westar.
They have public utility access.
Yeah, so generally speaking, it's to companies with public utility access.
Okay.
You know, whether or not NextEra would qualify as that, I don't know.
No. My understanding, they do not for that, but again, it's something we're going to have to be careful in our road maintenance agreement, that it's not included in there that they can do things like this, because you probably aware as I that they can put things in there that can be back and forth. I think we've all got our eyes open, and hopefully we'll not have things slip past us, but we don't know. And that's why we have the wonderful people in Nemaha County to help us dig and do things and provide us with information, feelings. Like I say, it's lease land versus non-lease land is where I feel we're down to it. And if somebody could figure out a way to get the people that have signed leases out of them, you know, I think they'd make a lot of people in the county happy. But that is, because I've had a lot of people that, as you pointed out, false pretenses, you know, that seems to be a pretty common situation. And like I said,
So Dennis, that brings up a really important question. If the sheriff's department understood that there was a phone scam or something going around, there'll be an article in the paper.
In other words, he said that if there's a lease scam going around, there should be an article.
I'm just at, if you've been, because I've heard this, I didn't know that you'd heard it too, but I know of a number of landowners that were deceived, signed under that deception, would love to get out. In fact, some sit in this room today, and how can this be? How can we be so worried about a phone scam that's going to take money from my 87-year-old mother and not worried about this?
I agree, that.
Okay.
But like I say, it's, is it what's newsworthy? I don't know, you know, but we've had some beautiful articles in the paper.
It's almost
This
too
about
late
the
now.
peril, there's
And
really
I might
done
be
a
aware of it a
wonderful
little
job.
bit. A phone scam is like somebody calling my 77-year-old mother, representing themselves as being the IRS, and you owe back taxes and you do this, which is just a total out theft, usually from somebody overseas, so it's difficult to track. So that's something that's prosecutable by law as theft, by deception. But somebody who signs an unfavorable easement, lease, contract for sale of property
by deception
is really something that is not.
Get the example,
By
that's the point.
deception.
Get the example.
Brad?
It already shows the quality and the character of the company we're dealing with. That's the point.
What's the difference, like the neighbor I talked about, he had a contract, and then they slipped him a totally different contract. That is complete deception.
And
What's the difference?
I wasn't aware of that situation.
Brad, I'll take it. Well, you're using a good example, I think, but in this case here, there was a conditional use permit granted for a certain area in the south part of the county. They're leasing outside that area. That is violation. If there was a need for a conditional use permit when they done it, they had no business being outside that area.
And that's certainly something we're pursuing.
Okay, do we have any further discussion?
Not as a criminal action, mind you, but from a civil standpoint with the counsel that the county has retained, we're certainly pursuing that issue.
I think it's criminal.
Or
at least under false pretense.
Bob, you're going to point out the actual statute for me. I'm not aware how that's criminal.
Dwayne?
I have a comment too. Back, before I forget, back when we were talking about setbacks. I just wanted to clarify, my copy of Invenergy's contract has no setbacks whatsoever in the contract. None. I was told a setback of 1,500 feet from participating residences, 2,000 feet from non-participating. I matched up notes with a friend of mine who had the exact same thing written down. There is nothing in the contract, and it says in a countless number of ways in the contract that if it's not in the contract, it's void. It's not part of the contract. Just wanted to clarify that is how Invenergy is operating, at least as it represented itself to myself and others in my area. Another comment, you alluded to this pilot agreement, what most of us refer to as a pilot agreement, as a contribution. Where did that terminology come from?
What's that?
When earlier.
A contribution?
Yeah.
From NextEra.
So, that's something, and Dennis, I appreciate you referring to it as a pilot agreement. That's something to me is on the surface seemingly inconsequential, but I find it extremely distasteful up until recent weeks or months maybe that all the information that's circulating is originating with two large corporate energy companies. Is a pilot agreement, payment in lieu of taxes, bad PR for them? Maybe. I don't know, but I'd prefer to refer to it as a pilot agreement, not a contribution.
It's part of the pilot agreement.
I don't know that we're asking for a contribution in hopes maybe we'll reimburse the county for what we've given up, the losses.
Well, it's not a set figure.
No.
It's not like it was, you know, we could go out here and appraise it and say, here's what it is, and that's what it is, because the state of Kansas and President Obama and have signed and given green energy the life. They said, here's the way it is, and here's the way it'll be, and you'll have tax-free for life up until 2016. Then it was put to an end, and then after that, it's 10-year exemption. Same as like CR when they came to Seneca, was given that same option of payment in lieu of taxes. Maybe we should put that in there rather than contribution. Payment in lieu of taxes is the same.
And I know it may seem inconsequential, maybe it is, but, you know, I just, like a lot of other things, I think referring to it as a contribution makes it sound like they're nice guys, and I don't know that they are.
Well, and that's to be determined.
Half a page ad in the paper makes it wishing our friends in Nemaha County a Merry Christmas comes across as maybe seeming like they're a nice guy, but I don't know. I don't know that that's the case.
And just to point out, I'm not sure how the document is titled is as important as what's in the document. That's where we have to be very careful that that document, that agreement would not contain just what that payment would be, but would encompass all other terms and rules by which they would have to comply. So that's why we brought on Mr. Neal, who's an expert in this field, to make sure that all these other things, that decibel levels, that limits on shadow effect, that setbacks, and everything's encompassed in that one agreement. So whatever it's called, I'm not sure that's a matter of semantics, but it is extremely important that we're careful as to what is included in that agreement.
Don't I know it? It's just that even though this, again, may be inconsequential, up till now, Next Era has been providing the dialogue, providing the wording in agreements.
Most of the legal counsel.
And I find that distasteful. Maybe I'm alone.
No.
Well, as far as the agreements with the county, they did submit just their blank boilerplate, fill in the blank sort of agreements, but I can assure you that we're not just using those, that our council is going beyond just what they provided. Now, as far as the options that they provided, I mean, you correct us, they
with all
provided
due
those.
respect, Mr. Lippert, that's not very comforting to me, because you used their wording. They wrote 2016, correct?
They did, yes.
And you signed off on it as our county attorney, correct?
The county commissioner signed off on it, yes.
So that's not very comforting to me, saying that we're not just going to use their boilerplate coming from you. You understand that? All right.
I don't think we're going to cover much new ground here today, Dennis. Why don't we call it a day?
Well,
That's more of a motion.
we'll go ahead and move our council meeting back up to the commissioner room. Any of you are welcome to stay if you want, but we've got some other issues. Courthouse closed at noon.
So Bradford met us and the door's been locked.
You guys can't get out.
Thank you all for coming.
Anybody that's wanting a copy of what Lori Menold had this morning, you'll need to grab all 3 pages that are on the table.
Perfect.
Grab one of each staff.
I sure do.
They're all different things that she provided.
Very good. See you later.